Still no sign of Alan's body? All right, well, widen the circle. If Alan had managed to bail out of the plane before it crashed, then his parachute would have carried him several miles away. Yes, of course, I realize his chance of survival is slim, but I want us to continue this search until we find something. Thank you. Yes?
Alan? Very interesting development in the Quatermain case.
What is it? I was beginning to think we'd never find out what happened to Alan.
Looks like we barely scratched the surface.
What have you got?
The search party came up with some fragments of Alan's plane, including a portion of the wing with the fuel tank.
Here's the lab report on it.
A chemical substance was found in the fuel line.
Yes, and that's what caused the engine to fail.
The boys in the lab say someone tampered with the fuel tank.
So you're telling me?
Alan Quatermain's crash was not an accident. Somebody wanted him dead.
So Alan's plane was sabotaged?
The only way that chemical could have gotten into the fuel tank is that somebody put it there.
Yes, yes.
Anna, am I interrupting something?
No, come in, Brett, please.
I'll get back to the search party.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thanks, Vince.
Mr. Walker, this is Anna Devane and Bert Ramsey.
How do you do?
Pleased to meet you.
Mr. Walker?
Bert. Mr. Walker is an insurance agent with the company holding Alan Quatermain's policy. It seems that Jimmy Lee Holt has been making some accusations regarding Monica's possible connection with the crash.
What do you mean?
Well, on more than one occasion, Monica was heard to be threatening to kill her husband.
I'm here to learn the results of your investigation into the plane crash.
Well, there certainly isn't much to tell you.
Oh, I need whatever you have so far. My company is not about to pay double indemnity for a crash that wasn't an accident. And nobody collects for suicide or murder.
Well, I just think I would like to hear more about these so-called death threats.
Well, as you know, Alan and Monica were engaged in a pretty bitter divorce fight.
Yes, it seems that everybody in Port Charles had ringside seats.
They have a history of quarrels, both public and private. Only recently, it seems their quarrels have escalated to full-scale warfare, culminating in Monica swearing to kill Alan if he interfered with her happiness.
What is this? Is this hearsay or what?
Both Jake Myers and myself were eyewitnesses to the last brawl. I mean, you can call him up and ask him for Monica's exact words if you care to.
Well, who was the beneficiary in Alan's policy?
Monica Quatermain.
Although Alan was trying to change that. Unfortunately, his plane went down before the proper papers could be signed.
And who was going to be the new beneficiary?
His father.
It makes you wonder if Alan wouldn't be alive today if he hadn't decided to change his policy.
We don't even know that he's dead yet, Mr. Walker.
Regardless, I think you can understand why we feel it's absolutely critical to determine whether or not the crash was an accident.
Yes.
And I need to talk. Well, maybe you already heard. We brought up the subject of your suspicions about the crash, yes.
Suspicion, nothing. I'm convinced that Monica tried to kill Alan.
What proof do you have, Jimmy Lee?
The evidence will turn up, I know it. Regardless of what Edward thinks.
Well, he doesn't agree with what you're saying.
Well, Edward doesn't think that Monica's cold-blooded enough to plot and murder her husband. I do.
Oh, come on, gentlemen. Before we start accusing people of murders, I really think we ought to have a cause. I mean, unless we can actually find Alan Quatermain's body, we can't even prove he's dead, let alone murdered.
We are talking about my brother, my flesh and blood, Miss Devane. If he was alive, we'd have heard from him by now.
So no sign of Alan's body?
Well, if we don't find Alan soon, we'll just have to call up the search.
No, I want to keep looking until we find some proof that he's dead.
Well, what have you got so far? I mean, the plane couldn't have just vanished into thin air. You must have found some pieces of it.
There's no reason to keep this quiet anymore. It's going to turn up in the FAA report. That is that there was a chemical substance found in the fuel line.
Make certain that my company receives a complete report of the investigation.
Yes, Mr. Walker, under the circumstances, you are entitled to it.
How did a chemical substance get in the fuel line?
Well, it appears that someone put it in there knowing that it would cause engine failure.
Wait, I don't know why I'm so surprised. It makes more sense to me now.
What makes sense?
Alan told me that Monica gave him a check for his birthday.
So, there's no crime in that.
The check was to pay for flying lessons.
So Alan's flying was Monica's idea?
I don't know whose idea it was, but I do know that Monica paid for Alan's lessons. It seemed strange to me at the time, considering they were at each other's throats.
Anna, what more proof do you need? The woman threatens to kill my brother several times. She buys him flying lessons. He dies in a plane crash. You don't need to be a brain surgeon to figure out who to point the finger
All right,
at.
I just don't want anyone jumping to conclusions.
Jumping? You look to me like you need to be pushed, lady.
I'm going to keep you informed about the progress of this investigation, and that is all. You'll excuse me now, gentlemen. I'm going to pay the Quatermains a visit. See you, Violet. of history. That was all that Lila said. Monica had paid for Alan's flying lessons at his suggestion.
Jeez, I never knew that Alan was a flying buff.
Well, Lila insisted that Alan had not been coerced into these flying lessons. I mean, even if they hadn't been initially his idea, he jumped at the opportunity.
What, so he could take the plane up one night with chemicals in the fuel tank? No, I don't buy it. Alan Quartermain is the last man I would ever think of committing suicide.
What about a murder victim? Yes.
Yeah.
Here's the latest report from the search party. Still no sign of Alan Quartermain.
Okay, keep searching.
How much longer?
Another day.
Oh, Anna,
We have to be absolutely certain, Bert.
if Alan had survived, we would have found him by now.
Yeah, you'd have thought so.
Oh, you're not convinced?
No, not sufficiently to call off the search. I just don't feel good about giving up now. Not right away, anyway.
Anything new on the aircraft?
Yeah, they found some pieces of the fuselage. It's all been sent to the lab. We should have a preliminary report any time now.
Good. We can use some answers in this case.
It could take a long, long time. You know, Anna, we may never find out the truth about Alan's crash.
Yes, we will, if I have to reassemble that plane myself. Yes?
Yeah.
Just came in from the lab, Chief.
Oh,
You'd want
okay.
to see it right away.
Thanks.
Thanks.
That's strange.
What is?
Well, the lab found pottery shards in the fuel tank.
Pottery shards?
Yeah. Well, we'll get a better idea when the lab's reconstructed the pieces, but...
You know, maybe Jimmy Lee is right. Maybe Alan's accident wasn't so much an accident.
Murder? Suicide?
I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine.
How do you want to play it?
I want to question Monica. I think it's getting a little too close to home to spare. I just want to hear what she has to say.
Vince, you get back to the search party and keep in touch.
All right, Chief.
All right, Anna. Just how do you figure it? Do you think that Monica plotted to kill her husband?
Up until today, I wouldn't have said so, but now I'm not so sure. I mean, it really looked like someone wanted Alan out of the way.
Well, if not his wife, who?
I don't know. You know what really worries me more than anything?
What?
Is if Monica is involved in this, then her affair with Sean is going to come out into the open, and people might start to put part of the blame on him.
Oh, Anna, Jimmy Lee could be wrong about Monica and Sean.
I don't know about Monica, but, Sean, you know, he wouldn't be involved in Alan Quartermain's crash.